Welcome to Out of the Box with KT and JP. Talk from a higher dimensional perspective. Looking at current affairs and the energies of the times. With a high vibrational proactive approach. Come and explore the universe within us all. Sundays, 1 till 3 on Wolf Spirit Radio. With Katie Gallanti and Jay Perron. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Oh yes, and welcome to the latest news show on Sunday, and I'm going to be presenting this alongside my delightful and very astute co-host, Katie Gallanti. Welcome, Katie.
Hello, JP.
How are you doing? It's a lovely spring day here in Scotland. How's it in San Diego?
Lovely spring day in Southern California also.
Fantastic.
A little cold in my room because it's in the shade.
All right.
But beautiful sunshine.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So, well, it's been windy but bright here, and I've got a bunch of daffodils that I picked out of my garden and stuck them in a jar just to make it cheery and springful. And I think it's a really lovely day to start a new venture. And here we are. This is the end of Aries, the beginning of Taurus. What we decided to do was to run the shows on the first Sunday of the astrological month. And although that's a bit of a mouthful, I hope people are going to start to get used to it, because what I've always wanted people to do is to tune in to the more galactic time zones that we have around our planet. We have the astrological calendar as opposed to the Julian or Gregorian calendar, and we also have the sidereal calendar, which runs from fixed point to fixed point per year and per day, and that gives us our rotation in terms of the galaxy rather than in terms of the sun, which we're orbiting around, of course. So we get the same aspect when we're looking at the galaxy every day. So it's a much more steady point of view. So that's sidereal time. But we're starting off with astrological months. So here we are. We're at the beginning of Taurus, and you mentioned some things in the post. So do you want to sort of start off by expanding on those, Kate?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say that astrology is a hobby of mine, but I'm not like the top astrologer in the world, right? But I like to just see where the planets are going, because it kind of gives us an idea almost of cycles of development for humanity at large. They can be cycles of development for us personally, but they kind of give us the flavor of the energy for the actual planet and what humanity is going through at any given time, that are communal to everybody, right? And then obviously, as you talked about the sidereal time, but even without putting the time in there, my sense for a long time is that we are part of some larger cycle that is so large that we can't understand it properly, right? Because when cycles are so big, you don't get to be alive long enough to track it, right? So it seems to me that we're also part of a massive, bigger cycle that is completing at the moment, so that we're moving into the next phase, right? That in general. But just as far as ordinary Earth reality, the sun is going into Taurus. In fact, it's already gone into Taurus. We have had a series of stelliums since the beginning of the year, and for people that are not used to the word stellium, stellium means when a lot of planets kind of conjunct together, stay together in one sign, right? And so if you have 3 or 4 planets that are all in the same sign, you call that a stellium.
So it's a kind of star gang.
Yeah, it is. It means that all of the planets have decided to stick together in one energy, right? And the interesting thing is that started this year with Capricorn, and then after that, gradually all the planets moved into Aquarius. Then they gradually moved into Pisces, and when they're in Pisces, we had the most planets in one sign. I think it was if you put Chiron and the moon in there, at some point there were literally 7 planetary bodies that were all in Pisces. And we were all going a little bit crazy with that, because Pisces, I know you're a Pisces, so I'm going to be gentle on the
No, you can look, Katie, lay it out. I'm not proud.
Yeah, well, Pisces is a great sign, but in a way it's slightly otherworldly, and it's not always very grounded, right? And it can be a bit emotional, do you know what I mean, and so on. And it can...
What do you mean a bit emotional?
There you go. So, if you have a couple of planets in Pisces, it's great. 3 planets in Pisces, fine. But if you have 7 in Pisces, that's a little overload, okay, on the space cadet syndrome. So there was a lot of difficulty being grounded, and also I found that I had difficulty thinking. It was almost like you're in the universal mind, but you're not really down here in the day-to-day kind of mind. And Mercury stayed in Pisces for a very long time, because Mercury, that is the planet that rules thinking, stayed in Pisces for a long time because it went all the way almost to the end of Pisces, and it retrograded and went all the way to the beginning again, and then it went forward again and did the whole thing. So Mercury has just now gone into Aries, right? And I'll get onto that in a minute. And so then all the planets from Pisces went all into Aries. Aries is a very fiery energy, right? Not as many as, there weren't 7 planetary bodies, but at some point there was 4 or 5 of them. And Aries can be very volatile. It can, it's very good for starting things. It's very good for initiative. It's very good for energy, right? And getting things done and so on. But it also can create like anger and, quick reactions, quick tempers, and it's not the most, it's a bit impulsive, let's put it that way. Okay?
Okay, so...
And so now we are in Taurus. So now, of the planets that are moving forward, because some of the planets that stayed in, for example, Pluto stayed in Capricorn because Pluto moves very slow, and Neptune stayed in Pisces because Neptune moves very slow, right? And Uranus stayed in Aries because Uranus also moves quite slow. So of the planets that move fast enough to change signs, we now have the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Taurus, all right? And that is happening today. And all of those planets are in opposition to Saturn, that is in Scorpio, all right? And so in a way, Taurus I like Taurus as an energy. It's very grounded. It's kind of sensual. Makes you want to eat good food. It cares about like the simple but good things in life, right? So it's a much more peaceful energy than the Aries energy. But it's squaring at the moment. It's opposing Saturn. So it's almost like there's lessons to learn here. And in particular, Venus right now is opposing Saturn. And Venus was conjunct Saturn in November. So right now, people are going through almost like a...
Oh, Katie, I lost you. Yeah, have I lost everybody? No, I'm still online. Okay, Katie, you with me? Loop, 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 loop. Yep. Loop, 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 loop. Okay, well, we're just going to call Katie back up once we've secured this connection. There we go. And hasn't quite come back online yet. And I call. And she's online. And I'm still having trouble with this. I'm going to have to put a cable in. Oh, that's better. Okay. Right.
Hello, hello.
What were you saying about communication?
All right. So yeah, that's right.
So you're talking about sensual Taurus,
all right,
and opposite Scorpio, and that's when we lost you.
Okay, so it's opposite Saturn. All right, Saturn is always an energy that is about lessons, about responsibility. It's kind of like the teacher taskmaster, right, of the zodiac, right? And so, in a way, it's kind of spoiling our Taurus mood for a week or so. But then the planets will move forward and they'll get out of that opposition. And I think the energy is going to be much more pleasant, okay? And it goes very well with spring, by the way, okay? Now, Venus at the moment is almost exactly opposite Saturn. I think it's going to be opposite Saturn tomorrow. And Venus was conjunct Saturn in November. So if you were having some relationship issues or money issues in November, you may revisit them at this time, all right, for another week or so, trying to get some resolution to all of that stuff, okay? Now, moving this more into out of the personal and into the, the more planetary collective thing. Mercury is conjunct Uranus in Aries, okay? And Uranus in Aries, when Uranus went into Aries, I think it was in 2010, I may be wrong about this, maybe it was 2011. That is when there was all of that commotion in Egypt, right? And Mercury at the moment is conjunct that. So that is a fairly volatile combination. It's kind of rebellious. It's wants to think its own way. It's like independent thinking and so on. And I thought it's kind of interesting that this is coming up at a time in which we're having with the whole Boston thing. The events that we've had in Boston.
Yep. So,
at a time
Katie, precisely what was that?
Sorry?
Precisely what was the influence on that day?
Well, not on that day. I haven't looked at the day specifically. But basically, Mercury is conjunct Uranus in Aries. And that is what we have now. Mercury has just moved into Aries, right? Very recently, just literally in the past couple of days. And so I didn't look at the aspects for April, for the actual event that I think was on April 15th, right? But the events in the past couple of days have had this Mercury-Uranus in Aries tinge, okay? Which I think is promising because I'm sure that everybody is on board here with the fact that what happened in Boston was a massive false flag, very well coordinated thing. Okay.
Fairly well, but not very well, because there seem to be lots of holes in it, and it's almost like they're trying to say, look at this. We actually
look-see over here. Do you know what I mean? And don't pay attention to anything over there. To the point that they actually put that on the website of the FBI.
Really?
They did. They said, these are the only two pictures that you should be interested in. Any other pictures that are out there in the internet, don't pay any attention to them whatsoever. Okay. They put that on there. It's just a distraction and it wastes police time. Okay. But I think it's promising that we have the Mercury-Uranus in Aries because Mercury-Uranus doesn't want to think in a collective way. It wants to think its own way, right? And so here you have an operation that is meant to make everybody think in one very mind-controlled kind of mass propaganda kind of way, right? Happening at a time in which the planets are saying we're not going to buy any of that. Okay? Because the planetary energy is saying, I'm going to speak my truth, and I'm going to speak it with force, and I'm going to be unconventional, and I'm going to break the rules, and I don't really care about authority. That's what Mercury Uranus is saying. All right? And so I think it's interesting that at the same time in which we have CNN putting out its own propaganda, various outlets and newspapers putting out their own version of things and events, that at the same time we have the aunt of the boy saying that the boy was framed, right? And we have, the family is being extremely vocal about the fact that they think this is all a setup, right?
Really?
Which I think goes with that kind of with the Mercury Uranus energy. I think it's actually a good thing that we have that energy right now, right? And maybe when the boys, as I call them, set up this event for April 19th for their ritual sacrifice to Baal in preparation for May 1st, they didn't quite look at the astrology calendar properly. Right? It's like not every April 19th is created equal, right? So, because every year we have different energies. So the planetary energies, the solar system energies, are not supporting blind mass consciousness thinking at the moment. However, having said that, it is it's kind of sad to see how much the people that are going along with the programming, how vile they're actually being at the moment. I don't know if you've been reading comments underneath YouTube videos and so on. There's a very big lynch mob mentality out there right now, which is kind of I don't know. I had to defriend a few people from my Facebook because they were saying "Go USA, kill the bastards," and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what we're witnessing is an increase in polarity. There's sides against sides. So there's it's very hard to remain neutral in this whole thing. And actually, we had the other one with the gun debate and all of that stuff. And I still believe that was a distraction from whatever they were doing. We knew we had a gold thing the other day as well. And
yep, absolutely. And they're still pushing. I think that everything that has, that I'm a big proponent of the fact that pretty much we've been in one big ritual since September 2001, and probably even before that, just before it was more infrequent. But it's an agenda that has been building with all of the different pieces, but especially since Sandy Hook in now I'm blanking on what date it was. It was in December. Since then, there has been just an ongoing push, an agenda that seems to be building, one little piece at a time and gaining some kind of momentum. I actually was surprised that this event in Boston was pinned on still some let's call them terrorists from outside of the country, right? Because my feeling was, from things that I was reading, it seemed to me that they were trying to shift things more and more to people that were actually inside the USA as domestic extremists and all of that kind of stuff. And my feeling was that we were going towards a time in which everybody could be a suspect and that everybody could be pulled aside and so on. And I still believe that is ultimately where all of this is heading, right? And what happened in Boston, obviously, was a way to start to condition people that even just on suspicion, because we have to remember that these two people were suspects of a crime. They were not, suspect of a crime means we think it's you, but we don't have every single piece of evidence and we haven't given you a lawyer. Do you know what I mean? We haven't figured out if it's you, but we're 99% sure that it's you. But in civilized countries, usually you capture people and you give them a fair trial, right? Well, instead here there was a literally, unleash the forces to maximum ability, maximum voltage on these two people, and one of them is dead, and
so he can't testify.
Yeah, and and the other one is in hospital. Who knows if he will testify, right? And
he could be permanently damaged, and
absolutely, there could be all sorts of things that happen to him, right?
Can we get a patsy here? Can I get a patsy? Yeah. I mean, what the hell is going on? We're seeing more and more of these people with the uniform clothing, the same boots, backpacks, real terrorists.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and ultimately, we have legislation in place that was put in place post 9/11 that says that anybody that is labeled in a certain way can be taken, detained, things can happen to them, right, that are outside of what used to be the law. And this fits into that. And what they have done is that they have done this in a very public way, involving people into the process of finding, the suspects, etc. And then they have carried out what in another country would be called summary justice, right? And they've carried it out in a way to get almost the public to become an accomplice to what is going on, so that people get whipped up into this frenzy and then forget the fact that actually this is not how things should be done. And, a military presence or militarized police presence on that shuts down an entire city is not normal. Not to catch two people, it's not normal, right? But we're being conditioned to the fact that it is normal. And my sense is that this conditioning is going to continue, unfortunately. So I am hoping that the Mercury-Uranus energy will be a spanner in the works of this particular process of brainwashing and conditioning, right? That there will be enough people that are going to be vocal enough to, to say this is not right, this is not how we should be proceeding, this is, bring back due process, and, the guy that is in hospital right now, they did not read him his Miranda rights. And not only they didn't do that, but they said that they announced it. They said because of this special laws in national security, whatever, we're not going to read this guy his Miranda rights. Well, they didn't need to say that, but they announced that. Why did they do that? They did that to condition people that under certain circumstances, it's almost like getting people's approval, right? Under certain circumstances, we're not going to read you your rights, which means you have no rights, which means you can be interrogated in whatever way they want, right? And without a lawyer present, etc., etc. And this is, again, it's a way of conditioning people. It's a way of, we're going to tell you that this is what we're going to do, and you're going to accept it, and from now on, you're going to become used to the fact that you don't always have rights. If you are put in a certain category of people, you don't always have rights. And, this is not very far away from since all of this can happen just by suspicion, you don't have to prove anything to decide that somebody is, a terrorist or an extremist or somebody that goes under these kind of labels. It means that basically any person that has that kind of label attached to them, even by suspicion, loses their rights. That's not good. That's, Russia and Siberia type style stuff, right? But it's done in a much more Russia and Siberia was scary and threatening and very obviously dictatorial, right? But here it's not done in that way. It's done in a feel-good CNN, aren't we all on board with this type style. So they're trying to get people to be accomplices and supportive of these trends, which in some ways is actually what happened in Germany, right? Like in Nazi Germany, they had their rallies and so on. I mean, it was a more old school kind of propaganda, but they got people on board with their program through whipping them up into some kind of frenzy, right? So this is not good. But as usual, I remain optimistic, which I'm sure you do too, right?
Indeed.
I don't know. I always see that we're going to overcome these things. I always feel that we're going to overcome it. How? I'm not quite sure, but I always feel that it's, there's going to be a good ending to all of this. But at the same time, it's important to track what is happening because the good ending happens because we pay attention, right? And so we need to pay attention when agendas start to get whipped up and progress forward, so that we can, engage our own intentions to shift things. Okay. So there you go. So that's the energy, and that's my outlook on some of the stuff that's happening right now.
Here's Katie with the weather. Yeah. So, I mean, it really is like almost like an emotional weather forecast or weather review, as when, and I think it's valuable because people see random, or everything seems to be random.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the astrology, then you see, I'm not the only one who's been looking at the astrology, because they're riding these waves as well. They know that if there's going to be a large amount of confusion at one time, well, let's load in lots of emotional factors and whip up that a bit more, and that's what they've been doing. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the elite use astrology a lot. I mean, they poo-poo all of the woo-woo sciences, right? They poo-poo the woo-woo.
And leave it in the doo-doo.
And leave it in the doo-doo, right? So, they poo-poo the woo-woo, but they use it, right? They actually use it. And we should use it too. And in fact, we do use it. And my observation, it's not just mine, but in general in astrology, the observation is that the energies create the flavor of events anyway. So at certain times, you will see that you can almost look ahead and say, when that happens, there's going to be some issues, right? You can look ahead in the calendar and you can see that. Predicting what those issues are going to be is a different story, and for most of it, it's hit and miss. But you can tell what energies are going to be playing, and the closer you get to when those energies are exact or whatever, you will see that the world will literally manifest as something that with that flavor, right? And it does so in our lives, but it also most definitely does it at the collective level. And the elite, I think, use this often to plan their own events and to do their own things. But they also follow their ritual calendar, right? And I posted the other day some data on my Facebook thing about the events that happened between April 15th and April 20th. Pretty much, big events that have happened periodically through history. And the Gulf oil spill, do you know when that happened?
Oh, hang on. That was, God, I mean, these things happen so many times.
I know.
And, you know, it's like every couple of months. It used to be like one big disaster every 10 years. Now it's like every couple of weeks. And Gulf oil spill now, was that sometime, that's like 2 years ago now?
Yep, it was.
Whoa. The memory buds are almost working. But I can't tell you what date. It was in March or something. Let's try March.
It was 3 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. And it was April 20th.
420.
Okay. April 20th. And Waco, Texas, right?
Right.
But, you know, the whole... I wasn't here all of that happened, but that was April 19th. Okay? And Oklahoma City bombing, apparently, was April 19th. And I'm trying to remember, there's a bunch of them. There's like a list of like 7 or 8 of these major events that all happened sometime between April 15th and April 20th, and mostly on April 19th. Okay? And apparently April 19th is a special day in the Satanic Holidays calendar, where there's like a ritual sacrifice with fire. So the Gulf oil spill, there was a big fire, right? That's how it started, with a big fire.
That's right.
There was an explosion on the rig and people died and so on. So that was a ritual sacrifice by fire. And then even all of the other events were explosions and so on. And even this event here in Boston, although the marathon happened on the 15th, on the 19th is when everything went crazy, right? And there was gunfire everywhere. So you have the fire thing. And also there was that plant that blew up in Texas, right?
That's right.
There was some fertilization plant, or I can't remember what was in there, but something blew up over there as well. And, you know, all around this time. So apparently, all these sacrifices happen because they build up towards the end of April. That is, it's like ritual offerings. At the end of April, there's this big festival that's called Valspurgis Night. And then, and at some point I had actually done some research on what that was about, but I'm kind of not remembering it right now.
Yeah, there's also, Kate, there's also Adolf Hitler's birthday. They're all jumping up and down in the chat room. Adolf Hitler!
Yeah, that's right. April 20th, and Queen Elizabeth, April 21st. Okay.
And
so they get people to be born on these days as well, like, induce birth now.
That's right.
You know, sacrifice over there and induce over here. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that the film The Wicker Man must be based on this same event.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've got a history, Katie, haven't we? We've got a history. When we get together on the radio, you know, there's nothing more that we like to talk about than satanic ritual in the public eye.
We always manage to get there somehow.
It always comes out. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so...
Well, the thing is, it's not our fault that this is how these guys are wired, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if you look at it, that is what they do. You know, so we're just observing the patterns of what it is that they're doing. And what they're doing is not very nice, and so we always end up talking about this really strange dark stuff, right? Because that is, unfortunately, what's going on, or at least what it seems to be going on. And how exactly these people think, to some degree, unless we were to actually talk to one of them, and they don't really talk to people like us, we're never really truly going to understand. But what we do understand is that they're obsessed with ritual, right? And that everything, and in fact that they do everything in a kind of ritualized way. And so especially these events that are manufactured in order to get a result very often coincide with auspicious demonic times, right, that are going to create good juju energy for them, right? So, which is bad energy for us, right?
Yeah. Let's. I'd like to explore that a little bit.
Yep.
Because it's a subject that seems to be quite close to my heart, in that what the satanic ritual energy does is to stuff fear into the ley lines.
Right.
And they do that by taking a ley line point and terrorizing somebody until they're in a such state of great fear, and then they lock it by killing them in that place, and that pushes that energy into the ley line. And it's like, what the ley lines do is that's what makes us telepathic. That's what makes us do the right thing at the right time, meet the right people, all of that stuff. It's natural. And what they're doing is unnatural. They're like damming up those flows.
Right, yep.
With this energy. So...
and if you look at it, I'm not so familiar with the ley lines, but what you call ley lines, I call the earth grid, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's like a grid and so on, and the ley lines are some of the connecting lines on the grid, right? And the grid there's a map out there that I think is the one that always comes to me, that I think is the most accurate for the grid. That is I think it's called Becker-Hansen grid. Okay,
that's
if you go
right.
and have a look on it.
Yeah.
And
Becker-Hagen? No.
Becker-Hagen, yeah, or
Yeah.
Becker-Hagen or Becker-Hansen, I can't remember. But it's one of those. Write Becker in Google and you'll find it, right?
Yeah.
And that grid, obviously, the map that you're going to find is just the bold, the bold lines and everything. But you can blow it up. There's a way through which it's constructed, and you can blow it up, and you can actually go into detail with where the lines are. And I think that that detail becomes the ley lines, right?
Yeah.
But the map shows you like big nodes. There's big nodes on these on this grid, and one of them is, for example, in North America, in the continent of North America, there are only 3 nodes. Like, these nodes are pretty big. There's like 2 or 3 of them per continent, right? Just because of how the grid is constructed. And these are like the major USB points, download points for the Earth, right? And one of them from the North Continent of America is actually here. It's just a little bit south of San Diego, okay? And another one is in Alaska. Guess what we have in Alaska, right?
Right.
What do we have?
Harp, yes.
Yes, very good. So, it's interesting that they would build something like that on one of the major grid node points, right? And then the other one is in the bit between Miami and the Florida Keys. I don't know geography all that well, but there's a part where Florida then becomes a bunch of islands, right? It's right there, okay? Now, if you connect that point, that node, to the San Diego, Mexico node, and you draw a line, on that line, you find both the place where the oil spill went off and New Orleans. That is where Katrina happened, okay? And on the point in San Diego where all of the bad stuff, the actual node happened, that is where I'm very familiar with this because I have to track it because I live on it. That's where all the earthquakes keep happening. Okay? Since 2010, we've had earthquake after earthquake after earthquake. They're small, so they don't freak us out that much. We had one 7.4 and we had one 5.9. But basically, it's kind of, that part is constantly wobbling and creating some kind of quake activity, right? So, and if you go and you track these nodes, you will see that stuff often happens on and around these nodes. So, definitely, I would agree with you that that is kind of like downloading, what I would call downloading dark energy onto the grid. And there's a reason for which they want to download dark energy onto the grid, and it's because the grid is actually responsible for holding the dominant base frequency for the Earth. Okay, and so imagine that you download all of this nasty stuff onto all of these points, then the dominant frequency will stay low. It will be low, right? And why do they want the dominant frequency to be low? Because their dominant frequency is low and they like it. Do you know what I mean? That's right. I'm being silly, but
addicted to bass, yeah. So
I'm being silly, but in a way, they need it to be here. It's almost like if you breathe CO2, you need CO2 atmosphere, right?
That's right.
If you put it to O2, you're not going to be able to survive. So it creates the atmosphere within which they vibrate, and so it gives them power. Okay. But instead, if the energy goes higher, then it goes out of their range, and then they can no longer cohabitate with us. And in a way, everything that is going on and all of this plan is exactly about that, because the Earth and humanity, if they were left to their own devices without any interference from any of these forces, they would, right now, because of the energies that are coming in from the galactic center and generally being transmitted through our solar system right now, that is like being in a massive Reiki session 24/7, right, would be such that people would very naturally just go higher in vibration and, just go to the next level vibrationally. Right, and a lot of what is going on in our world is about preventing that. So we get given toxic foods, we get given GMO stuff, we have chemtrails sprayed, so we breathe horrible stuff, we have fluoride in the water, and then we're constantly bombarded by fear, horror, drama, and distorted sexual energy, and and very materialistic kind of stuff. And all of this is designed to keep people vibrating low, and then all of these various events and rituals are also designed to do that too. Okay. And by doing that, what is happening is that what would be naturally happening right now, that is, that people would be shifting vibration, getting cleaner, getting higher vibrationally, and which also means the DNA starts shifting, the aura starts shifting, people naturally go into their light body state that is not a new age, there's this new age thing, we all go into our light bodies thinking that we all become these kind of like glowy, angel-y things, right? It's not true. That's not what it means. It means that literally there's layers to the aura, right? And the higher dimensional layer out from where we are now, like the one more layer, is dormant, and when the energy is right, it activates, right? And what that does is that it creates a more flowing consciousness. It creates what we would describe, feelings of being awake, right? And a lot of people are already in their light bodies and they don't even know it, right? Being in the light body means literally having this extra layer of aura, that's working. It means that the crown chakra is on, that it's connected to the soul, that the soul consciousness is starting to be activated into the body, etc., etc. So all of these things would be happening very naturally if we were without interference. The interference is there on purpose to prevent all of this from happening, so that the real estate here stays murky, and so that the CO2 breathing landlords can continue to claim it. Okay. instead of being the landlords of the planet would be evicted if the atmosphere turns to oxygen only, right? So that's the dynamic that's going on here. So all of the rituals, another thing that the rituals do, apart from screwing up the ley lines and the grids, is that who are they doing these rituals to? Well, they're doing this to feed on one level and download on another level entities that are on another dimension of reality. And what they're doing is that they are creating an energetic doorway for some of these energies to come in. And actually the whole plan is kind of directed by these energies anyway, right? Most of the people that are involved in the upper levels of the quote-unquote elite are possessed. We're clear about this, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because this is an energetic situation, even to the whole point of the people that appear to be involved. It's an energetic expression.
It is. So, you know, they literally become vessels for other energies that don't live here in a body, right? And so there's a lot of that. So these rituals are ways in which these beings are pulled into this reality and gain power in this reality as well. So on the one hand, bad energy is coming down here, but also it helps them to have a communication system with these beings in the, let's call it the astral plane, for lack of a better word. Although I think it's more complex than that. I've, as you know, I've been working as a healer in removing these energies for a long time now, about 13 years. And at the beginning, I used to get really easy entities. I kind of miss those days. I felt very much more successful, right? Yeah, because sometimes when the entities are very big and kind of have teeth, it's not always easy to get rid of them, because very often the reason for which they're there is because the person made deals with them in other lives, and they're not always so easy to undo. So if you ever want to make a deal with certain entities, don't do it, because in the next lifetimes, it's not so easy to get them out, right? I mean, it's possible. We're not saying it's not, but people have to almost live out their karma to be able to evict some of these beings, right? So not a good idea. So in the immediate present, yes, indeed, there can be some advantages for the dark elite to play around with this, but in the long run, it backfires. 3-4 lifetimes from now, they will not be having a very good time, and they will have to deal with a lot of that stuff. Even if you leave the karma out, just because they made deals with beings that are now attached to them, and they create havoc in their energy field. Okay? So there you go. So, that's cheery talk. So, I'm passing on the mic to you, JP.
Well, you're doing so well. For someone who was apparently quite nervous before they started.
I always get nervous before these things for some reason.
I know. And I always say, you're going to be alright, you'll be fine. And of course you are.
I feel that my brain is not going to function and I'll forget what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, you do very well. You, one of my most, more focused, correspondents, let's say now.
Right.
So So this is very interesting. Oh, yeah, it's always very interesting. I just want to nip back to that little comment you made about how the entities started out really easy. I think that's where I'm at the moment when I'm talking to entities.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, at the beginning, as I say, it was exactly like that. It was like, I would do 2 or 3 things, entity gone. I remember once I removed 25 entities from a woman in half an hour, and she had a depression for 10 years. After half an hour of me working on her, I removed 25 entities, depression gone. Do you know what I mean? So it's a high level of satisfaction when it's that easy, right? Now I have some people that I deal with where I have to work on them for months to clear all their karma track, right? Before I can even go near any of the little creatures or big creatures that are hovering around them, right? So, but it's interesting. I mean, I'm not complaining because I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about some, not all entities are created equal, and not all of them, get removed in the same way. And, but almost every single one of these, situations involves people that have had really dark past lives where they have, made some of these, they've done these rituals, they've done these things and so on in their past lives, often in Egypt, right? And it's like prime time ritual, experience time. It seems everybody was messing around with,
they were queuing up.
Yay, dark side of the magic. It was, a good time for any entry, right? And, a lot of people are really into the whole Egypt thing. Actually, Egypt was a really dark time, right? It was a powerful time, a very metaphysical time, very magical time, but not particularly good. And if you have a look at the elite, they're very into Egypt, and there's a reason for it, because they were at their peak magically at that time. I think the energy was different on the planet, so they managed to get more done, right? But a lot of problems that we have now started then, right? So, Egypt was an interesting period, right? And
so that's when dark entities were brought into the planet.
It's not when they were brought into the planet. My experience in terms of looking at that kind of stuff from my own past life history, and this is just literally through my own past life history that I looked into quite a bit at some point. I think that Michael Tellinger is the one that's right about this. I think the whole problem actually started about 250,000 years ago, at a time in which I don't know what we would call them, but it was a kind of like galactic otherworld species came here and started messing with this planet, and they brought those kind of energies with it. Okay, but it's almost like the first visit was an exploratory visit. So they came here, created some havoc, but then they were like, oh, okay, let's come back in another X amount of thousands of years, right? Like, it doesn't feel that they kind of settled all the way. But if we were to actually track when they started to come in, that's when they started to come in. And then things got amplified around the last phase of Atlantis. And the last phase of Atlantis and the first phase of Egypt are actually in the same, they're kind of in the same bracket, right? Because Egypt began when Atlantis went down, right? And the history of Egypt that we are given is the last 4,000 to 5,000 years, and what I'm talking about is the official history, right? But the unofficial history, as far as I can see it, was actually, Egypt is like Atlantis went down about 12,000 before Christ, right, BC, and Egypt started around that time, and in fact it was already in existence as an Atlantean colony. And what happened was that at the end of Atlantis, some people, mostly the metaphysical people, both of light and dark, transferred to various places that were not as messed up. It's like they evacuated, right, to places that were not as messed up, Egypt being one of them, South America being another one, like the Machu Picchu type area. I'm not sure about the Mayans, because that may have been something different. But they kind of scuttled away into other places, right? And the history of Egypt really started when the priesthood of Atlantis, the surviving priesthood of Atlantis, moved into Egypt to after the Atlantean ball, right? And the dark priests of Egypt moved there, and so did the light priests. And at the time I was a light priest and I got killed, right? Like, if you were a light priest, you didn't last very long, apparently, right? And they kind of took out a lot of people, and then the dark priesthood established itself in Egypt, and kind of started the post-Atlantean cycle of humanity.
Hello, everybody. Yes, welcome back. This is not Soul Expressions. I had a major system crash, and I've just got to get the jingles back in, because everything's just gone completely doolally-tap. There we are, Out of the Box. You are listening to Out of the Box with Katie Gallanti and Jay Perron. So it's lovely to be back here. I'm just going to bring the jingles back into the system here. And there we go. Nope.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
And welcome back to Out of the Box with Katie Gallanti and JP. That's me. And I just had a major system crash, and so in order to make up for that dead silence that you've just had for 3 minutes, that's definitely going to go into the dead air archive. I'm going to where are we? Oh no, that mouse doesn't work, and I also don't have the right. No, I don't have what I had with me, because you see, when the system crashes, you lose the records that you're playing. So I'm going to have to play something else. How do you fancy some Eagles?
What you playing, JB?
How do you fancy some Eagles, Katie?
Eagles is great. It's good.
Because I had an earworm the last week, and it was take it to the limit. So everybody's going to get it again, because this has been my experience. I'm just sharing my experience, everybody. This is what I had for at least 7 days solid, running through my head. I don't know what it's about. Anyway, enjoy it.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Well, welcome back. Here we are. This is post-system crash and quick data download. And so I'm speaking with Katie Gallanti, and I just finished a what was it? A cheese with oatcake.
That's nice.
We'll talk about food later.
Yep.
One of our favourite subject, but
it's true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've just come back into the chat room. Let me just cancel this. It's about that. Okay, back online, folks. Please Start your players. Okay. Welcome back to Out of the Box. Why am I clapping? I don't know. Take that! Take that!
You're restarting the energy.
That's right. That's right. Isn't that what the Tibetans did to the Brits when they first arrived? I can't remember whoever it was, the white man, the Westerner, and all the Tibetans. They were like, and everything. Oh, they're applauding us, and the guy says, no, they're not. They're clapping to get rid of demons.
Right, lovely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there is a thing. They call it the knock, don't they? There's a sort of an occult terminology. Anyway.
Right. Well, just sound actually is very clearing energy. So when you clap, that's a sound, right?
That's right. I have a gunter.
Yeah. I have a gong in my kitchen.
As you do.
I don't use it. And it's small. It's a small gong, not one of those big, gigantic ones. I would love a big, gigantic one, but I would need a big, gigantic kitchen to have the big, gigantic gong.
That's true. Apparently, you know is it Rank Xerox? The big old gong with that big bronzed, muscular man smashing the thing.
Right.
Apparently, that gong that he hits is not the sound that you hear, and the sound you hear was made from just a kind of 2-foot one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even the little gong is enough to make my cat, Missy, run for the hill.
And turn into deep pile, huh?
Well, she looks at me as if to say, "You've got to be kidding me. You're not going to hammer on that thing again, are you?"
Not the magic round thing.
I think they can hear, their sense of hearing is stronger than ours. So it's like torture to the cat. It's like, they can hear it's too loud, right? So anyway, even if I just look at the gong, she runs. But yeah, you can, just in terms of just clearing the energy in a room, if you bang on something, or like even a Tibetan bowl and you bang on it, if you want to clear somebody's aura, you just get a Tibetan bowl and you bang on it and you run it through their aura. It clears their aura. It doesn't get rid of the creatures, but it gets rid of all of the static and the, density and all the rest of it that goes away.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit like dusting off cobwebs.
It is. Good technique.
I have a thing, I mentioned it before, but I probably need to explain it. I have a Ganta, Ghanta, which looks like a school bell that has the little Buddha head Vajra at the top. And you play this thing with a stick. And it's basically, like a bell has a particular, it decays, and the sound dies away. But if we play this thing with the stick, the note lasts forever. And it was an early form of feedback. And I love it. I love the Tibetan bowls, not just for banging them, but for actually doing the long note by doing the stick thing with them.
Yes, absolutely. And talking, like, we were talking about end of Atlantis and people that run away to the earthquake.
Yeah, let's go back, let's wind back a bit to there and then go ahead from there. Thank you.
No, but the Tibet thing kind of fits into that because I believe that was another pocket in which either they were already there during Atlantis, because they go way back, right? But they have all pre-Atlantean type technology that they use, and they're very shamanic, the Tibetans. It's a very shamanic form of Buddhism that they have going on. And so they do dances to get rid of entities and all of that chanting and toning. Those are all like things that used to happen during Atlantean time to clear energy, but also to get into high states of consciousness, right? And I've mentioned many times, people are probably sick of me talking about this, but that at a certain point in the late 90s, I trained in this methodology that is called Awakening Your Light Body, which was completely life-changing for me. I had already woken up spiritually. I already had all of my paranormal experience before that. But in a way, it's only after I did that course that took me about a year to go through that things really got focused for me, right? And all of that course is done through toning, all of it. And at the beginning, I just used to listen to the tones, and then towards the end, I would make the tones. And when you actually make tones, and it forces you to breathe in a certain way, if you want to do toning properly.
Too right.
It makes your breath get very slow and very deep. And after a while, you're in a very altered state of consciousness through this. It's just even from just the breathing. And then the tones are all in. There's certain sounds that go with it. So, and the sounds trigger the chakras and the vibrational centers and the light body centers, depending on what sounds they are. And apparently, the guy that created this course went. He was already working with some quote unquote higher dimensional guide, and went out into the desert and was given these tones and started practicing them by himself, and then started teaching them to other people. And the main thing that it did was just to skyrocket. It like cleared up the clairvoyance. It kind of opened up all sorts of channels, and mostly for me, it opened up a clairvoyance about energy. And I have various people now. I used to teach this, but it was too hard for me to teach. Very strong energy. It would take a lot out of me. I didn't enjoy it that much. And also, I don't particularly like teaching.
And let's just say, it wasn't just teaching. It was teaching in an inner city school in London. Yeah, it's not just like a nice little primary school in the country,
Well, that was the actual teaching job that I did, but I actually taught the light body to normal people.
Normal people.
not my kids, who actually were quite open to weird stuff like that. They were more open to weird stuff like that than they were to mathematics. I remember bringing a big crystal to school and giving it to one of my kids, and I said, "Okay, now close your eyes, hold this, and tell me." Just hold it, close your eyes. And he was like, "Oh, wow, pretty colors." and this was, as I say, inner city kid and all the rest of it, young kid, and totally open to that kind of experience, right? But if you had to teach them math, forget it, not open at all. So anyway, but yeah, so the light body thing, as I say, all done with sound. And just in a way very similar to some of the things that you encounter when you listen to the toning and the chanting of the Tibetans. So I think those guys go way back, right? And that they have hold on to some kind of ancient technology that they use for deepening their own consciousness and energy. Okay?
Well, I mean, we know that they've got technology that can lift a rock.
Yes.
High up onto a cliff.
Through sound.
Through the use of sound, yeah.
It's mostly through sound.
Yeah.
And also I think they have technology that goes deeper than that we don't even know about. That is more reserved just for the initiate path, right? And then I haven't quite made up my mind, and this may I don't know if what orientation the Tibetans hold altogether. Like, and I'm not going to go, literally, I don't know. I haven't quite made up my mind. There's some people out there that say that the Dalai Lama is actually not exactly who he says that he is, and so on. And I don't have a clear opinion about any of that, right? But what I do know is that they have knowledge and techniques that are very ancient and very effective, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a little insight about that, and we maybe talk about that later. But anyway, do go on, because you bring the Tibetans into the Atlantis story. Okay.
Well, the Tibetans into the Atlantis story, it goes into the end of Atlantis, all of the it was mostly the high consciousness people that the priesthood type people that managed to flee, and that was mostly because they had the bilocation metaphysical technology to be able to do that. Okay, so the normal, the muggles, as you would call them, right? It appears that a lot of them did not understand what was going down and got kind of caught up in it. But more of the more metaphysical people, a lot of them seem to manage to get out of that story, and so they reseeded in various places. One of which was Egypt, and my feeling is, from having looked at many people's past lives, from having looked at my past lives, and so on, is that most of the dark side of the priesthood ended up in Egypt. And in some ways, the fall of Atlantis was a victory of the dark side of Atlantis anyway. So there was not that many light people, and the dark priesthood of Atlantis that then became the dark priests of Egypt kind of went out of its way to get rid of all of the people that were in their way anyway. So the representatives for the light did not actually go very far. It was like a couple of generations, and then they were kind of wiped out, kind of thing, right? But then other things were happening at that time anyway. That is that although they were successful, at least on one timeline, that things get complicated if we start looking at possible alternative timelines, but at least on one timeline, they did their thing. They managed to crash the grid, and Atlantis went down. They managed to go to the next level. They got rid of all the light people. Then they established their dark role that is the beginning of the phase that we're in now, that is ending now, because every so often there is a window that opens where there is the possibility for a change of the guard in terms of consciousness. And the last time the window was open was at the end of Atlantis, and now it's open again. But from what I understand, this time it's even a bigger deal, because it's something that has to do with the galaxy and the universe as a whole. It's almost like there's small shifts within bigger shifts. So we're in a really big shift right now, and the idea is to navigate this shift. And as far as this planet is concerned, it's to do it without the dark ones interfering once again into the process, right? But as usual, if you take it out and into a bigger picture, all of these are initiations for all of the souls that are part of the humanity group consciousness to go to the next level, right? Like so we have to have a bad guide to push against to be able to make that leap. And so far, it seems that at least on this timeline that we're on now, we've attempted several leaps, but we only hopped. Right?
Yeah, we haven't quite taken off yet.
No. So this is a time to really leap. Right? And my sense is that we're going to manage. It's fine. Okay. But we need to just stay focused and clear, right? And one of the reasons for which I think this time we have a good shot at some of this is also because this time most of us are aware of, not most of us as in all of humanity, but there's a large chunk of people that are quite aware of what is happening, what is going on in general on the planet. We're not as easy to manipulate. And maybe it's because we've done it so many times already. Right? It's like, I know the game you're playing. I'm not going to fall for it this time. I remember the last time I played this game. Right?
That's right. We don't have to finish the game the same way. We've got the benefit of hindsight and pain to teach us to come through the cycle. So, should we talk a little bit about how we can move forward? You know, let's push the envelope to the future.
Okay. Well, there's individual forwardness and then there's collective forwardness, right? So at an individual level, to move forward right now, because all of us have the opportunity to move forward as individuals anyway, right? As individuals, the way to move forward is keep your field clear, right? Work through your karma, which basically means clean up your blockages and history, right? Patterns and so on. If you understand about karma, work with your past lives, right? If that doesn't resonate with you, just work with your issues, because all of those issues are a reflection of your karma anyway. So work on your stuff, right? And then if you're metaphysically inclined, raise your vibration, and you can raise your vibration in many different kinds of ways. Eat good food, and by good food it means organic, live food if you can, or you don't necessarily have to be vegetarian. Not everybody's body works well with that, or at least not all the way. But make sure that what you're eating is not processed and doesn't have the New World Order chemicals in it. That's the most important thing. Drink clean water, meditate, listen to music that is not soul corrupting, and just lead a clean life. And if you are at a point where you're very conscious, right, that you understand, serve other people, because if you put yourself as service to other people, you automatically start to grow. But when you put yourself in service to people, try to do it without getting into spiritual ego, okay? Now, spiritual ego is one of the biggest traps on the spiritual path. And we can all get there. We can all have moments of spiritual ego. But if you stay in spiritual ego, right, like if that becomes your MO, that will get you into trouble, because you then are working with power distortions that will very quickly land you into the astral plane and working with entities that can't wait to use your ego. Okay?
Yes, you're standing in front of the light, as it can be put.
Exactly. Now, and by spiritual ego, what would you say spiritual ego is? It's like getting very fascinated by your own role, various savior complexes, various, I'm the most clairvoyant person in the world. Do you know that video of that guy? I think he's called Ari something. It's very funny. It's like a very humorous song about this guy that goes to an ashram, and he's like, hey, I've got this meditation thing down. They said to meditate 30 minutes. I did it in 5. You know what I mean? It's getting very, I drink kombucha. I'm now like, most spiritual person in the world. It's like getting very fascinated by your own level of consciousness, or getting very fascinated by your own clairvoyant gifts, or any of that kind of stuff. All of those things where it becomes about you instead of it being about the mission or being about service, all of those things will eventually get you into trouble. So don't do it that way. But if you can get your ego out of the way, service to people, in various ways, service to the bigger picture is a good idea. Now, a lot of the people that will be listening to this are probably old souls anyway, and there's a lot of souls here that are on the planet to help with all of this, and literally have come here to support with this process, and already have a mission that their soul knows what it is in terms of helping and supporting. And so getting clear about that is very helpful, because then if everybody does the piece that they agreed to do, whatever that piece is, if we all do it, then everybody's doing their job, and the process works really well. Okay, so JP, your soul chose to be Mr. Radio Extraordinaire, right? And, but another person may have a contract of raising a child that that is very conscious, or changing paradigms in parenting, or changing paradigms in education, or whatever. There's a lot. Basically, the rule of the game at the moment here is transformation, and it's about transforming a lot of the earth structures. And we're getting into the collective piece now. A lot of what is on the earth plane right now has been put together by leadership that is aligned with dark. Okay? And so you have education that is not really very good, and you have, healthcare.
Well, I mean, Katie, come on, let's face it. Not just not very good, but they're teaching our children lies.
Exactly.
Right, and that's really confusing them, and they think that they're failures because they're not able to roll with these lies. They're not able to roll over that they're expecting, and so that's one of the big problems with the education is the kids recognise what crap they're being taught.
That's right, but also also they're taught stuff that is useless. It's like, of the things that you're actually taught in school, most of the stuff that you're taught in school is not very useful. Well, instead, you should be teaching things like, business skills, or relationship skills, or negotiating skills, or, stuff that makes you think about who you are and what you want to do as a real person, and knowledge as well, but more expanding knowledge. Well, instead, a lot of time is spent on learning history that is false, and of gaining knowledge that is not very useful, right? So people come out having learned and then forgotten a whole bunch of stuff, and then going out into life and having no clue about who they are or what they're doing. Right?
Absolutely, and this is okay. So that's education knocked out of the picture,
right.
And we're also now learning about the banks and all these things that we were taught, we were conditioned. Remember that word to respect and admire and to what's that word? Oh God, I've lost it. It's the one, it begins with an A. Oh God, aspire. That's right. To aspire to, what a great honor it would be to be a doctor or a lawyer in the old days,
Yeah.
And so, the lawyers are liars and doctors, they're just poisoners who poison you with chemicals. And lie to you as well, saying, "Oh, you're going to get better with this." And so everything's turned upside down from the truth, and no wonder children get confused. I think no wonder people are being called autistic. I think autistic is really normal, and maladjusted is neurotypical these days.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's getting worse from that point of view because not just education, but generally all the systems are in place to perpetuate what we already have against the tide of a big galactic Reiki session that is making everybody more awake. So they have to almost double up the effort to make it worse. Right? It's like it has to get even worse than it was before, because otherwise they're going to lose their grip. Do you know what I mean? So, but the good news, because that's the bad news, but the good news is that there's a lot of people that have missions to change stuff, and there may be somebody that has a mission to be a raw foodist and to teach everybody how to do raw food and detoxing and all of that. That's a paradigm change in food and nutrition and so on. There's a lot of that going on, and not just the raw food thing, but in general, stuff that is meant to teach people how we're really supposed to eat, right? Okay, and then there are people that are tackling the education piece. Then there are people that are tackling the political piece. Then there are people that are tackling how to bring art back into the picture and creativity and all of those kind of things. People that are working with new psychotherapy type stuff. And by the way, psychotherapy, we had a good start with that and until about the 70s. And then all of a sudden, they started shifting everything so that it became about medication and cognitive behavioral things that never looked at the root of any issue, right? And so we've actually, although there is psychotherapy in the world, that is what you need to deal with your issues if it's done properly, right? The mainstream doesn't want psychotherapy, right? And this is a topic that I'm into because, as you know, I'm doing my PhD in this stuff, and I did my master's in it as well. And I believe that that is one of the things that needs to be. There were some changes that were happening at some point, and then they kind of almost stopped because the mainstream stopped supporting them. Okay, so we basically, I'm going back to the individual piece. We need to heal. In order to move forward, we need to heal, and to heal, you have to deal with your stuff. To deal with your stuff, you have to work through it somehow. So if you have a pattern where, you know, you get scared in certain situations and it locks you down, or you have low self-esteem, or you have something else that makes you get too angry or whatever, now is the time to deal with it. And to deal with it, you need ways to do it, because most of these things we do them in an unconscious way. And so there's various techniques from healers and real psychotherapy, which is becoming very rare, to help people to move through that stuff. And you can move through stuff very, very quickly if you're doing things in a real and effective way. And you can stay for years spinning your wheels and going nowhere if you're not doing it properly, right? And in fact, sometimes you can discover that you have issues, but then not be able to move anyway in terms of actually healing them, and so on. So that is also on the picture. So basically, there's a lot of souls here that have come in to transform all of the pieces that are dysfunctional, of which there are many. And if everybody does their piece and gets themselves in alignment and in service, it's like a tapestry with many pieces that all start to shift, right? And within that, a lot of the people that listen to something like Wolf Spirit Radio and so on, there's the political piece that, in a way, we call it political, but it's actually the power. It's the transformation of the power structure, right? And how we run this planet. And at the moment, we think we run our countries, and our planet in some countries through some form of democratic process, but as we know, that's not true. It's an illusion, but actually behind the scenes, it's always the same people that are pulling all the strings. And so part of healing the power structure and the leadership of the planet has to do with exposing what is wrong about it, because a lot of it is hidden. And that is what a lot of the souls that have come into the form of info warrior or truther or whatever, do you know what I mean? Those kind of people are all about. And it's very important, because who is creating all of these dysfunctional pieces on this planet? It's the leadership. And so if you truly want to create change that is permanent, then you're going to have to tackle the leadership of the planet as well, and kind of take the power back.
That's right, because you're not going to change the program on the television by throwing the TV out and buying a new one.
Yeah, no, you have to literally find out who's doing the programs, right? So
Katie.
Yes.
Can we field a few questions, because they're starting to pile up in the chat room?
Yep.
Where was the first one? Here we go. The first one, here's one from Andrew, who's asking, what does Katie think about the Akashic records?
Right. Okay. Well, some people think that there's literally like a storage place for records that you go to. I don't. I think that those are meditation techniques to be able to retrieve information psychically, right? But I don't actually think that there's a place that is called the Akashic Records that you go to. But I think that you can plug into almost like the universal mind, and especially if you're going through, basically if you work with a person you go through their energy fields to get their records. And for people that don't know what the Akashic records usually are supposed to be, it's like the whole past life history of a person, everything that they've experienced and all of that. If there is a place where that stuff is stored, it's actually in the DNA. Because the DNA, and the DNA, by DNA I don't mean just the physical DNA, but the multi-layered DNA that is multidimensional. If you plug into that stuff, you can access the past life history of a person. In general, because basically every person incarnates with everything that they've ever been, okay? But I don't think that it's an actual place that you can go to get like records from a library or something. But it's basically the history of a soul that you can retrieve from the energy of that person, both on the physical plane, tuning into their field and their DNA, and on the multidimensional level, you can go directly to the soul and track that stuff. Okay. Now, all clairvoyants and healers, they have their own ways of doing things, which I think are all equally valid. Very often we just use methods that are familiar to us to do stuff that have basis often in our own past life history. It's like if you are a soul that has had certain kinds of experiences, you will be more comfortable dealing, for example, with multidimensionality. If you were more shamanic, you will be more comfortable going in that kind of direction. So there's many different ways to achieve the same thing that I think are preferences that a person will have depending on who they are at the multidimensional level, right? So does that answer the question?
Yep. Let's keep them going. I would like to add that Akash is the Sanskrit word for sky.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
So,
interesting.
Sky records.
So ultimately, it's the soul records, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think you're right about the DNA, and it's the DNA runs on a frequency. It's an ultraviolet light frequency. That's how it communicates with each other, and presumably there's ultraviolet communication in the atmosphere. So I think that right. By exposing yourself to the sky, right. that you have a connection in. You get downloads from the sky as well as the sun, and probably that's what chemtrails are trying to block too, to stop us connecting in with that part of the human consciousness.
Absolutely, and also the DNA. Again, this is my experience of it. There's a physical part, but there's a non-physical part as well. So when they talk about people having 12 strands of DNA, it's not that they suddenly have, like I've heard Stuart Swallow, right, say that there's no such thing as 12 strands of DNA because they've discovered only 2 on the physical plane. There's no other ones, right? And on this one, I disagree with him because, yes, there's only 2 physical strands, but each body that we activates a new set of energetic strands, right? And so when you activate your soul bodies, for example, you start to activate your soul level DNA strands. Okay?
I get you. So one for each of the bodies up to the monad.
Absolutely.
And that would make 12.
Yeah. So you have a
so
pair.
They become 6-dimensional, probably, or something.
They become 12-dimensional, and you have 12 double strands. So it's 24. It's 24 strands altogether, but it's 12 pairs, right? So it's 12 pairs of DNA. Now, everybody has these 12 pairs of DNA. Everybody, okay? But in some people, they're dormant, and they're not dormant because of some bizarro thing. It's because they haven't activated their higher dimensional bodies yet. But when you start to raise your vibration, you automatically activate your it's like the next multidimensional body. You will activate it.
Right.
And if you are actually doing stuff to accelerate that process, then you may be able to activate more of them. However, not everybody can activate all 12 pairs of DNA. It depends on the soul consciousness. At a certain point, it becomes a soul consciousness thing, and you cannot go beyond a certain point in soul consciousness unless you've cleared your karma, right? And so if you're full of blockages, you're not gonna activate beyond a certain point. And what actually happens if you put yourself through things that accelerate that process, like DNA activations, even the light body method that I was talking about before, if you do that and you push the process too fast, what ends up happening is that all of the karma that is stored energetically within your being, because that is how it works, it's actually stored inside you as energy packages, right, will start activating all at the same time. So you will have one hell of a hard time dealing with stuff that
I think I did that last week. That sounds like last week to me.
Well, and the thing is, why is everything so turbulent on the planet right now?
Because that's what's happening on a global scale. Yes.
It is. That's what's happening on the global scale. On the global scale, the energies that are coming in at the galactic level are extremely activating, and they're forcing people to deal with this stuff. But it's not because their guides said, oh, it's time for you to deal with your stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's because literally the energy is coming in. It is hitting people's energy field. It's hitting their DNA. It's hitting these packets of unprocessed energy, and it's exploding them out. And so people, when that happens, they may have physical problems. They may have sudden past life issues that start coming to the forefront again. They may find that their life becomes very intense, and there's all of these relationship issues, or, do you know what I mean, new people that come in and to clear up stuff, because we're kind of paired up with people with who we have karma with as well, right? So for the past 10 years, the energy has because every year is kind of more intense. And if you look at it, a lot of people's lives are coming unglued. It's not a bad thing, because it's part of the process. But if you become aware that that is what is happening, you can kind of assist that a little bit by, like working with what is happening, get some healing, do some self-help type work, and have a look into your own karma, what happened, what did you do, you know what I mean, and so on. So if you can become conscious of it, it can become a little less overwhelming. It's not that it's not going to happen, it's still going to happen, but it can be a little less overwhelming, and you can pilot it a little bit, okay, through consciousness work. And that is happening because of this spontaneous activation, right? Now, if we had, let's say that we were in more enlightened planet, okay? And let's say that everybody knew 40 years ago that we were going to approach this time. Then everybody would have been spending time, instead of what our leadership is doing, that is basically bombarding us with even more crap, pardon the French, we would have all been preparing for this, right? And maybe it wouldn't be quite as intense, But we're in it, and so we're in the soup, we're in the cosmic soup, and we're being boiled like frogs, right? And it's, if the more conscious you become of this process, the easier it becomes, right?
That's whoops. Okay. That's this is the whole issue. I had some guests on a few weeks ago who had done a really, really intense purifying situation. Mm-hmm. And what they were saying is that our programming exists in our physical body as some kind of like a cladding, you could say, and that when we really, really hardcore deprogram and detox our mental bodies and our emotional bodies, that there's space in our physical body for our light, our real self, our true self, our higher self, our God consciousness, our spark of life, whatever word you're going to use for it is the same thing.
Yeah.
Our soul, our monad, the whole bit, for that to occupy.
Yeah.
And I would like to share an experience a couple of weeks ago I had, or last week actually. I had this hell of a week. It was really, all about karma, and karma is all about shit. I'm sorry, I have to say it. That's what it is. You feel it, you step in it, you clear it up. It's all about clearing up stuff, right? I'm just going to use the word stuff instead of saying the word, doo-doo.
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 The woo-woo doo-doo.
That's right. Actually, we were playing around with names for the show, and one of them I came up with was the doo-doo perspective. Maybe it should be a segment in the show. I don't know. But the doo-doo perspective that's karma. That's what karma is. It's stuff that you made a mess, you left lying around, and somebody else trod in it.
Yep.
Or lots of people trod in it.
Yeah.
It goes back. So that's karma from limitless time, and it all builds up, and you end up in places.
And then all of a sudden there's a boomerang effect, and all of it ends up in your face.
Or you trip over it, and that's where your face ends up. Yeah.
So right now we're in the boomerang zone.
The doggy doo-doo blues.
We're in the boomerang zone of the universe.
So the boomerang effect is happening to everybody. So that's really good. It's not just happening to them; it's happening to us. And what it is, it's polishing us. It's making us clean. Because as they say, you can't make something else clean without getting something else dirty. But you can make everything dirty without making anything clean.
I see.
But this is the moment. We're here to witness the moment of cleansing.
Yeah.
And when I say that, my mind thinks of the red dwarf, the Nibiru, the wormwood. The thing that is passing through our solar system, according to various people, they see it in Antarctica and it's coming in, and nobody knows when it's going to come, and it's the big cleanser, it's the big equalizer, part of our job as ascended beings is to remain calm during this process.
Yeah. And to do your homework, like whatever it is that the universe brings at this time, as sucky as it may seem, it's there for a reason. So deal with it.
That's right.
The quicker you deal with it, the better it gets. Do you know what I mean? Like if you don't resist what is being presented, and you deal with it, you move through it very fast. If you resist, it gets worse, right? Because you just can't shelve it. We're not being allowed to shelve anything at the moment, right?
Deal with it now.
Things keep on going until they're complete, okay? And I'm sorry to say this, but it's also possible to fail this process if you get very stubborn and you hang on to your issues and you don't try to shift through your own stuff or ego or whatever, then you start to descend in vibration. So this is a time of choices as well, where you choose. Are you going to be a high vibrational being? Are you going to be in integrity? Are you going to leave your ego behind? Are you going to look at your stuff? Are you going to stay out of denial? Are you going to be of service to other people? Are you going to let go of your attachments? It's not for lightweights, this process, but it's the process we signed up for because we're here.
Yeah. Well, let's just say, I mean, this is the thing. This is what we call shamanic healing. And shamanic, from my perspective, shamanic healing is where you tune in with the vibration of the person that you're dealing with, and in doing so, you take on a kind of light version of what they've got,
right?
And then you pass it through your body, you process it, and then having processed it, you have a kind of morphological field pattern, archetype, which they can then apply to their issue and heal themselves. It's like putting a drop of hydrogen peroxide in the inky water, and then putting that little drop into the big tank, and the whole thing clears up.
Yeah. So it's like embodied homeopathy.
Yes, absolutely. And that, I believe, is social interaction. That's what it does. Happens all the time. Yeah, and people aren't aware of it and think that, they're ill. No, you've got a psychopath in your office.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I get it. Now, also, this is just because I know that we're almost closing, right?
Yeah, but we can, if you want. I mean, I don't know how much juice you've got left, but I've got a whole empty show for the next 2 hours, so you can continue flowing forth as long as you like today.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how much juice I have, but the thing that I was going to say is the boomerang zone, right? I like it. The boomerang zone sounds good. In fact, that could be a really good title for a show also, the boomerang zone.
Or a segment. The segment during a show. It's the boomerang zone. Anyway.
So the boomerang zone is not all of this process. This is the part of the process that we're in now, right? And it's the part of the process that we're going to continue to be in until, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like there's this galactic clock that is ticking, and the energy keeps on going and going and going, and it creates this spontaneous cleansing that becomes less spontaneous if you actually become aware of it and you start working with it, right? Like then it becomes more you guiding the process. But basically, after this kind of clearing has completed, then that is the point that your friend was talking about, in which the consciousness can come into the being, right? And in the way that your friend was explaining it was that can come into the being because there's room for it. But actually, what is really happening is that the soul bodies can fully activate. Okay? The soul bodies are actually not inside the body, they're outside of the body. They contain the body. Right? But they're dormant. But they contain the body. The body is inside of the soul bodies. Okay? And when you've done the spring cleaning, then these bodies can activate. And then at that point, there's a certain level of your DNA that activates. You become an ensouled being, which means that you're in touch with your soul consciousness. It doesn't mean that you're enlightened. It doesn't mean that you're like some special being. What it means is that the soul consciousness informs your incarnation. You start to bring the soul consciousness into the incarnation, okay? And which hopefully means that you become a better person.
Right. So, Katie, let's break right here, because we got to. Time has run out, so let's roll the credits. So, that is a brilliant, dynamic show. There's so much information in that. Thank you very much, Katie. And we'll be back in about 5 minutes after the necessary downloads. So, thank you very much. Good night.